And he said, well, because it's the only bird that can fly backwards. And I thought, well, that's good enough, right? That's what works for him as a songwriter. When I started to think about this, I started to think about, well, Baha'u'llah came from Nur, right? In the province of Mazandaran. And Mazandaran actually means the Valley of Giants, right? So I was thinking, so Baha'u'llah was quite short, but in the spiritual sense, he was a giant of light, right? And so that I developed this idea of the chorus saying, a giant of light, a light so bright, it can illuminate the whole earth, and using that quote of Baha'u'llah's. And then each time you try to find an idea, like I like the idea of this kind of like narrative idea of the it got a bit of a fanfare to it, you know. And if you have a Baha'u'llah came from the city of Nur in the province of Mazandaran. And then when you go, a giant of light, a light so bright, powerful, the light of unity. I could find these little phrases that I could find would work with that kind of sense of something that felt triumphant, felt that something that was a kind of a sense of announcement. And then I realized, okay, well, light means so many things, but all I could talk about was Baha'u'llah, because I realized that was my context for spiritual light. And so the song talks about the fact that he came like a thief in the night, and that only in the morning would we see him. You know, it's finding those little poetic phrases and phrases from Christian tradition and other traditions and poetic traditions that really help you find a way to say what he is. Maybe in a way that's a little bit easier for people to understand. I could say where he was from. He was from this Valley of Giants, but he, in fact, is a giant of light. And it's not something that you'll find in the writings, but it was something that, just like you won't find the hummingbird in the writings, but we all look for our ways. I'm sure Van and Jean will testify to this. Any songwriter, we all look for our ways to try to say it in a unique way or something that's satisfying to us. The next piece I want to show you is a little clip from some of the singers from Countermeasure singing about the 12th day of Rizwan. Can you show that, please, dear Parviz?
The divine springtime has come. The divine springtime has come. The divine springtime has come. Don't you wish you could have been there at the gathering in the garden on the 12th day of Rizwan? To be the lovers of his beauty, longing for a glimpse of him on the 12th day of Rizwan. Sorrow and joy embrace on the day not followed by night. Farewell with love and such grace as he leaves there on his journey, and the hearts are filled with yearning on the 12th day of Rizwan. The divine springtime has come. The divine springtime has come. The divine springtime has come.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much. The music sounded nice, but what happens sometimes when you send files is it will interpret it as a 360 file, so it only shows you little clips inside it because the actual video is of the whole choir. So you only got to see mouths moving and shoulders. But the idea for that song, I wrote a song for each, the first day and the 9th day and the 12th day of Rizwan, and each of them sort of expressed the story of what that day meant. And the song is actually was based on this kind of idea of a little simple riff. The divine springtime's come. So again, sort of a little bit of a fanfare, but then when it goes into the verse, it goes, don't you wish you could have been there at the gathering in the garden on the 12th day of Rizwan? And it goes on to say, to be the lovers of his beauty, longing for a glimpse of him on the 12th day of Rizwan. And then the bridge goes, sorrow and joy embrace on the day not followed by night. Farewell with love and such grace as he leaves there on his journey, and the hearts are filled with yearning on the 12th day of Rizwan. So the concept is to try to create that sense in a song of what it would be like to be there at that moment. And I think that's, again, something that narrative songwriting can do. It can tell you a story. It can maybe create a little bit of a sense of what that journey might have been like. So, you know, again, it's not, that particular phrase isn't from the writings. There's a phrase later where it talks about to be the lovers of his beauty, longing for a glimpse of him. And then the concept of this 12th day being the day in which he would leave, which would be both a day of sorrow and a day of joy, because he left that garden with a profound sense of having accomplished the first part of his mission, which was to inform a small group of friends in that garden about that day, about his mission, about the importance of the day of God. So every songwriter, what I'm kind of hoping, because what I've done is I've written a song for each feast and a song for each holy day, and I hope that they can contribute to music that can be sung at the feasts and at the holy days. And the idea being that hopefully it will encourage other songwriters, so that for the Feast of Light, we could have 10 different songs, right? We could have lots of people singing about light, about that quality, or at the Feast of Perfection, or at the Feast of Mercy. So the last one that I want to play for you, do we have time for this? Is that okay for one more? Let me just say that I hope this one shows it in not in 3D, but it's for the Feast of Perfection. Would you mind playing that one, Parviz?
Child made in the image of God, made in the image of perfection, in the image of Kama, in the image of perfection, in the image of the Father of us all, Baha'u'llah. Walk high above the world of being, walk high above in the world of love, live high the life of spiritual meaning, walk
Thank you, Parviz. That was better visuals. uh,
Sorry, what last one? Yes.
no, that's not your fault. It does that sometimes when you download them. But I wanted to just tell you that I started with this little idea that I liked, which was just a kind of 3 against 4, kind of 6/8 feeling. And this idea from the Bible where it says God is made, or man is made in the image of God. Man made in the image of God, woman made in the image of God, child made in the image of God. This concept that we are capable of perfection. And yet, if we don't view ourselves as spiritual beings, which is the core message of religion, that human beings are spiritual and have a soul, and have an opportunity in this physical life to develop qualities. And so we have this amazing spiritual calendar, which is based on these 19 attributes of God, calling us to recognition of the value of those qualities, and also commemorating all of the holy days associated with the founders of our faith. So I just wanted to show you what the book looks like. It's quite a big book. It's 12 by 12. And it's 335 pages. It has a beautiful combination of poetry, and there's a beautiful quote to start by Abdu'l-Baha about spiritual spring, with photos from the World Center and temples around the world. It has an introduction about the Badi calendar and why it's important and why it's unique. And then it goes through a table of contents with all 36 songs, lyrics, again, images and poetry, and then lead sheets that give you each song written out for accompanist and choir. And then it goes on to the next, or to the first holy day after the Song of the Month, the Nowruz song. And like that through 335 pages. Then there's a second book, which is a vocal scores, which is about 300 pages. And it's got coil binding on it, so singers can easily turn to the page that the vocal scores are on. And then all the tracks are there as instrumental tracks for people to sing to, and also very fine a cappella versions as an example of a good quality of singing that people can try to match. So this is something that I've always wanted to do, and I consider myself sort of in the last chapter of my life. So I'm going to do as much as I can to try to teach the faith. So the other program that we're doing with this is that this is going to be, we're going to be going out to universities all over the world with this book of songs that represent this new spiritual calendar. And hopefully it can be a way of teaching the faith through our calendar, through this very unique Badi calendar. And so all of this is available physically and digitally at my music site, which is called jacklensmusic.com. And I really hope that it will be a basis for the amazing work that Van is doing and Jean is doing, and so many people are doing in trying to encourage our Baha'i community to sing. That was the first kind of momentum that really got me going on this. And I so appreciate your time to let me tell you about it. And if you have any questions about it, there'll be information about how you can reach me, and I can let you know more about hopefully how we can encourage more singing. Thank you very much. Van, I turn it over to you, your very capable self.
Great. Thank you so much, dear Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. You inspired me, Jack, to do something different from what I had planned. I met Jack many years ago, and it was really before the second Baha'i World Congress in New York City at the Jacob Javits Center. And I was singing with the bigger choir, and Jack Lentz and Tom Price were the folk who were coordinating the music. I had been asked to form and direct a gospel choir. And for those of you who are Baha'is, you know, we did not have gospel music in the Baha'i faith yet. We tried many times, but never really had it. And so the introduction of it was in 1992 in New York City. And Parviz, I'm going to try, I already have it all up, set, to just share. I want to play the one song from that World Congress, which, as Jack was already presenting, I was struggling to find and set up. But Jack is playing the piano in this piece. The piece is written by a man, a Baha'i who is from Canada.
Fred Ward.
What's Ward? What's his first name?
Fred Ward.
Yes, Fred Ward. And so we took the song as we could hear it and learn it, and it became the introduction of gospel music to the Baha'i world in New York City. So I'm going to play that. Hopefully you'll see it. Hopefully it'll work. Here it goes. So here comes the gospel.
It's the day of God. It's the day of God.
Van, please unmute yourself.
Yes, okay. So, you see, it was 30,000 people. We had to, if those of you who were there, you had to go in the morning or the afternoon. 15,000 in the morning, 15,000 in the afternoon. We did it twice. Unknown to everybody was by the time we did this, which was at the end of the Baha'i World Congress, I had discovered I had shingles. I had lost my voice. I stayed in bed all day, the day before and that night, in order to be able to try to have a voice to sing this song the next day. and surely something worked. I was able to sing. But this all came to me as Jack is talking, and we see what an artist he is. And he had a whole lot to do with even my recognition in the faith. And I had been singing for years, but I had not done anything as large as to sing for something like the Baha'i World Congress, the second Baha'i World Congress. I'm going to also do a song with my guitar. This song is one I heard when I first became a Baha'i 54 years ago. It's a song that really tells the story of the Baha'i faith. So I'm a musician, a singer. I had joined the Baha'i faith. There was no music that I knew of. And then I heard this song that Alice Earl Rittenhouse wrote. It's called Have You Heard of Baha'u'llah? So I'm gonna sing the song. I do it very infrequently these days. Most people don't see me with a guitar, but I'm gonna sing this. And listen to this. Yeah, I don't know how she was guided to put all this information in a song, but it shows the power of music. I couldn't tell anybody all these words if I were just talking. I couldn't just tell them, but I could sing this song and give the entire story. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. Long ago, the people of all regions looked for a promised one to come, fulfilling all prophecy that all of humanity would learn to live in peace as one. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. The Bab appeared and said to the Persian people way back in 1844 that he was the gate through which the glory of God would come, the promised one we've waited for. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. The Bab was slain, his followers grew and spread the news of his coming far and wide. Among the believers, Musa Hussein Ali, the blessed beauty God had sanctified. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. Hussein Ali proclaimed his great mission in the year of 1863. He said there's no prison but the prison of self, and that his suffering would set men free. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. His word went forth in tablets of power and love from Akka, the prison by the sea. He said there's no prison but the prison of self, and that his suffering would set men free. Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? Have you heard of Baha'u'llah? I've heard the glad tidings, and I will tell you of Baha'u'llah. Baha'is there are all over the world who live in service to all humanity. All sheep of one fold, as prophecy had foretold, how powerful Baha'u'llah can be. Now you've heard of Baha'u'llah. Now you've heard of Baha'u'llah. Now you've heard of Baha'u'llah. Go spread the glad tidings and tell the people of Baha'u'llah. So you see, it was a lot of words, but it really put a story. It was a nice little story. And one of the things that can happen with music is you can tell people things using music that they won't hear when you're just saying it. So music has a great power, and all of us who do something in music try to do things to encourage people to hear a message. We've done several things which are not prepared to show you, but a recent one I think we did play here was called "Love Me," and the last words to that video are "I give up on hate." And you know, every time we play it, I play it for the community around Wilmette, around the house of worship in Wilmette, Illinois. And I played it last Wednesday, and there was a large gathering like this group, but very, very few Baha'is were there, maybe 5, 6 Baha'is out of 90 people. And we played the song at the end, and people were writing, can we get a copy of that? Where is that song? And the song is, love me that I may love thee. If thou lovest me not, my love can in no wise reach thee. Know this, O servant. And then we sing, I give up on hate. I give up on hate. I mentioned that we started doing music in a gospel style. Gospel style is the style of African Americans. And we weren't sure how this would work, because all the music we had heard before that had not been the music that Americans who are African descent had ever, really heard. They were used to having music from the African American experience. So I wrote a song. It's a prayer, but I wrote it in the gospel style, and I put some words in front of it to show my feeling for the song. And in 2004, the song was nominated and won Best Gospel Song by the Independent Music Awards in America. And the song is called My God, My Adored One. Now I'll start with some words from me that lead into the song, My God, My Adored One. Let me just stop and ask Jean. Jean, how's this sound coming through? Is it too loud?
It's a little distorted.
Okay, so I should turn it
Take
down.
down your audio just a touch, and then put your energy into your heart rather than your fingers, maybe.
Yeah, I just think the piano level is a little loud. That's all.
Okay,
Voice
Here we
level
go.
is good.
tell me if this is better. When times get rough and my soul has lost its fire, I turn to my God, my adored one, my desire. And when the road grows dark and my candle has lost its flame, I turn to God and I just call his name. My God, my adored one, my King, my desire. What tongue can voice my thanks? Voice my thanks. can voice my thanks. What tongue can voice my thanks? What tongue can voice my thanks? Voice my thanks to thee. And then from World Congress, I really can't sing the song without a choir. It's not in my range, but I think you might remember that this was the introduction of the gospel choir in its concert in 1992. It was the first song I wrote in this style. And so I wanted it to really sound gospel-y. And it started like this, and everybody began to know the beginning. We have come to sing praises to our Lord. Oh, we have come to sing praises to our Lord. We have come to sing praises to our Lord. Let's give honor to our Lord. We have come to give honor to our Lord. We have come to give honor to our Lord. So you know the song. We still sing it sometimes. I think it became a song that we kind of recognize as the beginning of our beginning to have gospel music in the Baha'i faith. Of course, we had to warm up to it. African Americans were very warm. They already were warm. But we had to try to see if we could get the Persian friends and all the other friends to know that this wasn't disrespecting Baha'u'llah, wasn't disrespecting the Baha'i faith. It's a part of the celebration of African Americans of something that they believe very much in. And so the entrance of that music became really our heart. I'll sing a last song, simple. It's usually sung as a call and answer. I wrote it many years back, and I'll tell you how it came about. I was attending a conference in Fort Valley, Georgia. It was a Baha'i summer school. And Hand of the Cause, Mr. Zikrullah Qadim, was speaking. And right at the end of his talk, he said, Baha'u'llah said, soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. And after he said it, he said, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. And then after he said that, he said, I wish somebody would put that to music. And I went home and I started thinking, as he said, soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. Now I didn't realize he was just responding to the words. I thought all that was the quote. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. So we normally sing it, soon will all that dwell on, and soon will all that dwell on be enlisted under these banners, be enlisted under these banners. Well, now I have a choir, and I did a choral arrangement. I'll just sing through it that way. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under this. Excuse me. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Soon will all that dwell on earth be enlisted under these banners. Yah B'Haolam, Yah B'Haolam, Yah B'Haolam, Yah Turn it over to Gene. Thank you all. Thank you very much. So wonderful to be with you, and we will certainly be looking for you when we start up again. So Gene, take it away.
Wow,
Thank
wow,
you.
wow, 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 wow. Unbelievable. Legendary Van Gilmer. Wow, my God. I loved it.
Yes, thank you so much. I have to thank Jack and Van because it was the NPR coverage of the Second World Congress that first introduced me to the name Baha'u'llah. But from the sublime to the ridiculous, let's start with a prayer. Could I ask that you unspotlight yourself, Parviz? I'd kind of like a turn. Well, let's get praying. I've risen this morning by thy grace, oh my God, and left my home trusting wholly in thee, and committing myself to thy care, send down then upon them by the heaven of thy mercy, a blessing from thy side. Ah, your wise, and enable me to return home in safety, even as thou didst enable me to set out under thy protection, and with my thoughts fixed steadfastly upon thee. Ah, there is none other God but thee, the one, the incomparable, the all-knowing, the all-wise. I've risen this morning by thy grace, oh my God. I've risen this morning by thy grace. I've risen this morning by thy grace, oh my God. I've risen this morning by thy grace, oh my God. There are lots of styles of music. In fact, it makes me think of the Rizvan message, that one sentence that I think the House meant it to be for Americans, when it said, a framework is not a formula. I think that was for the Americans, because we keep trying to make it into this formula, and if we do this, and this, the world will be behind by the end of the week. It doesn't work that way. It's a framework. Now, what can I say as a musician? I can say this is a framework. You can see it's Queen of Carmel. It's called a lead sheet, a fake book page. You can call it a chart. And what it gives you, if you were Baha'i before 1992, Queen of Carmel was a folk rock song. And after 1992, thanks to Van and Jack, it became a choral gospel number. And it can be whatever. See, this is my framework. It has a melody line, basic chords, the words. And so it can be, if you live in a place where singing things in groups of three, like the heartbeat, that's how music works. You either have marching, divisions of two, or beat, heartbeat, 1, 2. So it's ba-dum, ba-dum, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so say you live in a place that only really embraces things in three. So this might be what you're used to. But you're in a place that likes things in three, so it might go. And that way, I can get all that information off of this framework versus only trying to use a formula. Just wanted to share that with you.
Dear Jean, sorry to interrupt. Your entire screen shakes when you play, up and down.
Well, here, we'll go like this then. Excuse me. We'll try it that way then. Now, I wanted to offer you that little thing and then move on from that. We've been doing a lot of talking, and I'm claiming I can do it because I'm an award-winning storyteller. And I want to encourage all of you to find the storytellers among your acquaintances and invite them to tell stories. You don't have to give them the story necessarily. Maybe you do, but invite them to talk with kids, to be part of holy days, to enliven any meeting. Ask them with a little bit of time ahead and say, could you tell a story about such and such? And then trust your storytellers. I hope that's one way. Or maybe it's your writers that you find out you have. And maybe you have a writer and somebody who presents well. Have the writer write something and say, to the other person, could you present this? And that way, our artists, our amateur artists, which I would be considered an amateur artist, even though I've gotten paid once in a while. But I've never pursued it seriously as a professional career for very long. And there's a story behind that. And that's what I'm going to, by way of an example, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that story and the story of a history of a song. Here's how it goes. Many years ago, my husband was very ill. He ended up on dialysis, and the time was fraught for us all. It was hard watching him suffer, be in so much pain, and yet he never said a word. He never complained until after many months, he came home from work. He had kept working. He had been just an exemplary father. He came home from work and he flopped down into a chair and said, "Why me?" And as though the angels said, "Oh, we'll tell you why you." The phone rang like that. And it was our friend Drew. Now, Drew was also on dialysis. And Drew, unfortunately, had other medical complications, and he had no hope for a transplant. The phone rang, and there he said, "Is Michael there?" He had had a stroke already, and it was difficult for him to speak. And I said, "Sure, Drew, let me get it." And I handed Mike the phone. And he said, "Michael, how you doing?" And Mike said, "I'm doing fine." And they started to talk. They started to have those belly laughs that people facing death will have, that the rest of us may or may not be able to understand. And after a little while, he hung up the phone, and with tears in his eyes, Mike turned to me and said, "I know why me. So that I can have hope, so that I can know friendship." A few days later, Mike's transplant was approved, and it went very well. And the day after Mike got out of the hospital, after a while, Drew passed away. And I got a phone call from the people organizing the memorial. And they said, "You know, Drew's favorite hymn was Amazing Grace. Could you do Amazing Grace?" Well, I could do it in any key. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Or I could have done it. Amazing grace, how sweet. It didn't matter. I could do that dead to rights. And I said yes. But I wanted to do something more because I knew how much Drew had helped Mike over one of the largest hurdles in his life. And I said, "I've just written music to one of the prayers for the departed. Can I do that as well?" And they said, "Of course, yes." The problem was I had lied. I hadn't written music to one of the prayers for the departed. I can't lie to shorten a story, obviously, or I wouldn't still be talking. But I had to figure this out. And I said, "Oh, angels work outside of space and time. It's not that I lied. I just have the chronology out of order." And so I put the girls to bed, cleaned the kitchen. Mike was resting, and I had 20 minutes to write something down. And this is what came of that. beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. Oh, my Lord, purify them from trespasses. Dispel their sorrows and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. And so the next night was the memorial service. And I went went there with my 3 little girls, and I sat in the front row so that when it was time for me to come up and provide some music, I was there. And we sat there, and there was another woman there in the front row, a wonderful, outspoken, energetic woman. Now, it got to the point in the memorial service where people were going to get up and tell stories about Drew. And I wanted to tell how he had saved my husband's life. But I had had that chunk of time as the musician, and I thought, no, it's okay. And people got up, a few people. And suddenly, from the back of the room, the door opened and a man shuffled in. So slowly. He had on a mask, and he was working so hard to get there, and it took a full 2 minutes for him to get to the front. And there were 2 stairs he had to walk up to get to the podium. And it took all his might and strength to do it. And he got to the podium, and he grabbed onto the podium, and I watched his knuckles turn white as he held on to steady himself. And he pushed the mask off his face. And he proceeded to tell a story of how Drew, in his last days, had changed his life and saved his life when he had no more hope. And after that, he slowly walked down, and somebody helped him sit down. And that woman next to me leaned in and said, "Who the heck was that mess?" And I leaned in real close and I said, "That, my dear, was my husband." Now, he wasn't supposed to have been driving at that point. And we live maybe a mile from the house, from the Baha'i Center. And to this day, he cannot tell me how he got there. But that's the story that's a story of how music can be created. Now, obviously, I like to play with words. Me gusta jugar con las palabras. Ich spiel gerne mit Worten. Dustaramba kalmat bazikanam. I hope I said that one right. And today, the word of the day is accompaniment. We hear it a lot in our recent guidance. Hoy la palabra es acompañamiento. Heute heißt das Wort Begleitung. Amros kalime hamrahi ast. So what can a musician tell you about accompaniment? Jack obviously knows about accompaniment. Van obviously knows about accompaniment. And Lord knows I know about accompaniment. ¿Qué se puede decir un músico sobre el acompañamiento? Was kann ein Musiker über die Begleitung erzählen? Jak music dan der mored hamrahi che chisimetwan twan be shama bewego. Is that right? Probably not. Anyway. Number one, it is always about support. Your job as an accompanist is to support. Siempre se trata de apoyo. Es geht immer Unterstützung. Hamesha der mored himarat ast. There must be consultation before you work together. Debe haber consultas antes de trabajar juntos. Es muss Konsultationen geben, bevor sie zusammenarbeiten. Bayad Kabul as Inkebar Hamkar Kanand Mashara Vajud Deshta Bashid. You have to ask those questions, you have to set expectations, and you have to learn about each other so you know how to be together in the journey. I might have to follow or lead based on experiences, not based on anything other than that. I have to learn how to follow or lead as necessary. Sigo o lidero según sea necesario. Ich folge oder führe Bedarf. Man der Surat lezum donbal ya rabari me kanam. And what we learn from there is about each other's capacities, yours and theirs. Aprendamos sobre las capacidades, el tuyo y el de los suyos. Wir lernen über Kapazitäten. Ihr und ihr. Ma der mored kakten hayad mi girem mal do wa mal una. Here's an example. I was in 8th grade and I was accompanying a 4th grader. She played viola. And I could handle a 4th grader's viola accompaniment. And apparently, I found out years later, I had said something to her about her capacity as a musician. I have no idea what I said. A teacher told me this years later. And she had been at a point where she was going to give up on music because it was fun, but not that much fun, you know. And so she gave me a whole lot more credit than I deserved. I just happened to deliver the information. And now she's the artistic director of the Tacoma Performing Arts Center. I didn't know I was doing that by saying something nice. And I was an 8th grader and she was a 4th grader. But somehow, when we acknowledge each other's capacities and support each other's capacities, we're changing lives and making the world a better place. So let's see. Support, consultation, follow or lead as necessary. So be flexible. Learn about our capacities. And the last one, number 5, last one. An accompanist prays a lot. Un acompañante reza mucho. Ein Begleiter betet viel. Ja kamrodua me kan zia. And we're all called to do that. And so here comes the accompaniment song. We've done it before. And the reason we repeat is so that more and more people can do it. Because we learn by practice. Because we can't do a sing-along, what we're going to do is a move-along. So this is called, going to reach out your hand. So when we sing, gonna reach out your hand, you're just gonna put out your right hand. Now, if you're sharing your screen with someone, this next part, to grab another's, you're gonna grab the person in your screen. Otherwise, you go like this. Yes, thank you, I see. Could you unspotlight me so I can watch everybody? Because that'll be much more fun for me. Okay, I'm just gonna do it this way. So it goes, we're gonna reach out your hand to grab another. So if you got somebody to grab. Otherwise, grab yourself. No longer strangers. You're gonna go. We are sisters and brothers, arms around each other. I don't know. Maybe you don't feel that way about your brothers and sisters. I don't know. But for the sake of this, we're going to use it. Brothers, to change the world. We'll make a big world. You will discover, ha-ha! You've got to reach out your hand to grab another's. Okay, that's how it goes. Here we go. Gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. No longer strangers, we are sisters and brothers. To change the world, you will discover. You gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. A lot of people live with an awful lot to give, but they get a little shy when it's time for sharing. They might need a little urging to get over that hump. Oh, let me think. There's a lot of words. We like that. We like a lot of words. Yes, let me try that again. A lot of people live with an awful lot to give, but they get a little shy when it's time for sharing. They might need a little urging to get over that hump. What are the words? I'm going to go to this different verse, and maybe I'll remember the first verse. I always thought, no matter what I ought, that asking for help was a sign of weakness. I figured that I'd have to go it alone. Collaboration was to me a complication that would make my inspiration lose all uniqueness. It's social because it was unfinished meekness. Well, I don't know what the heck just happened, because now I know. You gotta reach out your hand grab another. A lot of people live with an awful lot to give, but they get a little shy when it's time for sharing. They might need a little urging to get over that hump. It's just a fact to get on the right track that the gifts you get back. Well, there's no comparing with get beyond sparing to loving and sharing. Oh, you gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. No longer strangers, we are sisters and brothers. To change the world, you will discover. You gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. Maybe you could show someone something that you know, like a skill that would help them with their learning. Maybe all you really need is to know you care. Make a real connection full of warmth and affection, maybe some protection. So be discerning with real concern. It's love returning there. Are we ready? 'Cause here we go. You gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. No longer strangers, we are sisters and brothers. To change the world, you will discover. You gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. Yeah, you gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. Yeah, you gotta reach out your hand to grab another's. Yeah, you're gonna reach out your hand to grab another's. Or you're gonna reach out your hand to grab another's. I had the best view. I got to see all of you. Give yourselves a hand. So there are lots of ways for artists to be artists, even in your community, the small things. Remember, the vast majority of artists throughout time are the anonymous ones. And so we've got to love and nurture those people. You know, the famous American painter, Grandma Moses, never would have become a painter if her eyesight and the arthritis in her hands made it too hard for her to continue quilting. So if you have a quilter in your community or some kind of fabric artist, encourage them. Because that's art, even if it doesn't become famous. If you have a poet, ask them to say a poem in a meeting. It opens people's hearts. If all you can do to play Queen of Carmel and help people sing along is to go, standing on the mountain, looking across the bay. It does not have to be. It doesn't have to be fancy. That will come in time. And that is a lesson for us in all our endeavors. You know, we're always asked to study, consult, act, and then reflect. And that's a process for everything in our lives. You'll learn. One more story because I had caffeine this morning. When I was a brand new Baha'i and we had those centralized schools and the kids were off doing their thing, and it was one of the, I was a brand new Baha'i and they said, could you teach children's classes? I became a Baha'i as a young mother and they presumed I liked children. I liked my kids, but I've gained some chops over the subsequent years. But I had this opportunity to hear the speaker, and his name was Ted Jefferson, a self-professed angry black man. And he talked about how as far as he could tell from his reading of the writings, that we each have our own chunk of the concourse. And our job is to send them out ahead of time to prepare the way, give them jobs to do, because that's part of what we need to do to get our lives in alignment with Baha'u'llah's message. And I thought, I wonder if you get to choose who's on your little angel team. And I said, I don't know if I get to choose, but I think if I could choose, I would choose Nana Earl Mozart, because from all that you can read, she was just as talented as her brother Amadeus. But she hit, being a girl, she hit 15, married off. We don't even have a good date for when she died. And so I thought, there's some untapped potential. And I said, if you get to invite people on your part of the your personal part of the concourse, I'll take Nana Earl Mozart. Now, I don't know that I can explain to you how badly I played piano. I mean, really, that I accompanied a 4th grader as an 8th grader, that's as good as I ever got. However, within a month of me trying that exercise of inviting someone to be part of the concourse, I could play whatever I needed when I needed it. Perfect, never, but it was always what was needed. And I wanted to leave that with you. This is a mystical and marvelous journey. We are created in God's image, and that image is, part of that image is a creative one. So create, try it, because that's how we can let the entire world know about Baha'u'llah. Allah, 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 Thank you for your patience. That's it. I got nothing. Let's go.
Wow, dear Jean, Jack, Van Gilbert, you guys, the Three Musketeers, fantastic, great program, loved it. I can see everybody clapping, everybody's so joyful to have you and us, to have the rest of the participants. We are so blessed to have our friends from El Salvador, Mr. Smile. We have friends from Italy. We have friends from Germany and from Iran. Mr. Pedram just called and texted me. We are really happy that we could do this to share our friends, our talented friends all around the world. Their talent is exemplary, especially last few months that we've had young people, fantastic players, singers, performers. We will be back. We would definitely want to continue this. It's just that everybody's got projects going on for like next 1 or 2 months. And I have all your contact information. I have all the emails. Everything is recorded. And we will send the information in advance for the next program. We'd like to hear what your suggestions are. We'd like to hear